My name is Karen. I'm a 30-year-old office worker, married for 2 years. My husband, Jack, is 5 years older and works for a major corporation. Jack has lived in the neighborhood since we were kids, and being an only child, he was like a big brother to me. However, once we started working, we moved away from our hometown and lost touch. 3 years ago, during a summer festival, we happened to meet again. After catching up, I realized my feelings for him had changed, and soon after, we started dating and quickly got married. Both our parents were overjoyed. But shortly after our wedding, Jack's company went bankrupt, and he was suddenly out of a job. I supported us financially, and Jack worked hard job hunting. Thankfully, he secured a position at his current company within 6 months, which was a relief. Moreover, he quickly made a name for himself at his new job and is now considered a rising star. However, Jack has become increasingly arrogant recently. He hands me cash for living expenses, so I don't know his total salary, but he must be earning quite a bit, given his extravagant lifestyle. He collects luxury watches he never wears and goes on trips under the guise of business trips. He's also often home late, so it's no surprise he doesn't do his share of the household chores. When I point out what he hasn't done, he tries to solve it with money. Cleanup? Oh, I forgot about that. But, since you're home more, you could just take care of it without making a fuss. I could even give you some extra spending money for it. I don't like his attitude, and it often leads to arguments. Pocket money? That's not the point. Then, Jack would either leave the house or lock himself in his room, making it impossible to have a discussion. I suspect he might be cheating, though I have no proof. We've moved to a nicer apartment, but my heart is growing colder. One day, while at work, I received a call. Your mom has collapsed. It was from my dad, and I rushed to the hospital. But I was too late. My mom had a chronic illness and had collapsed at home. By the time my dad found her, it was too late. In deep sorrow, my dad and I started preparing for the funeral. I tried calling Jack multiple times, but couldn't reach him. I finally got in touch with him at his usual time of returning home. I answered the call from Jack. Karen? Why aren't you at home? You've been calling me multiple times during work, what's going on? After returning home, Jack noticed I wasn't there and finally decided to give me a call. I'm sorry, Jack, my mom passed away. I managed to say, holding back tears. Yet, the response I received was completely unexpected. What? She died? Don't call me for something like that. It's annoying. I was stunned and couldn't hold back my tears any longer. Something like that? My mom passed away, and you call it something like that? I can't believe it. I'm staying at my parents' home tonight. The wake is tomorrow, and the funeral the day after. I'll be waiting for you here. I was a mix of sadness and frustration, barely able to convey the necessary details. So you're not coming home tonight? What about my dinner? If you're not going to be home, at least say so. Guess I'll go out for a drink or something. Jack's words just passed through me. When do you think you can come tomorrow? Somehow, I managed to squeeze out those words. Tomorrow? Oh, I can't make it tomorrow. I have an important meeting. And I can't get away the day after either. Not coming to the funeral? That's unacceptable. You can take bereavement leave, right? It's fine if you arrive by early afternoon tomorrow. It's inconceivable not to attend the funeral when your wife's mother has passed away. Despite my saying so, Jack brushes it off with a simple excuse of being busy. Eventually, I raised my voice. My mom has passed away. You've known her since you were a kid. You should at least come to say goodbye. My mom was a homemaker, and when Jack's working parents were busy, she would bring them meals. Our families have been close for years, despite there being no willingness to attend the funeral. After I raised my voice, Jack, seemingly annoyed, said, "Fine, I'll show up for a bit," and hung up the phone. The next day, many people gathered for the wake. Of course, Jack's parents were also there. Karen, isn't Jack here yet? My mother-in-law's question made me realize that Jack hadn't arrived yet. I had been so busy with preparations, I had assumed he was already there. The wake was about to start soon. When I called Jack, he answered unusually quickly. "Jack? Are you still at work? What time can you make it?" He responded irritably, "I'm still at work. I can't make it today," and yelled. There was no point in arguing further. I gave up for today and informed him about the time for tomorrow's funeral before hanging up. Jack's parents repeatedly apologized to me and my father and kept calling Jack, but they couldn't get through to him. I truly believed he would show up for the funeral, but Jack was nowhere to be seen the next day. Moreover, when I called him, he said, "You know my hourly rate is high. I could go, but can you afford to pay me?" I had had enough. Always talking about money. No matter how much money one has or how good their life is, I can't be with someone whose heart is impoverished. I decided to get a divorce. During the funeral, a woman approached me. "You're Karen, right? I was your mother's old classmate, and we just had tea together recently." She said so with tears in her eyes. Hearing this, I couldn't help but let my own tears fall. She continued, "Where's your husband?" When I told her he was too busy with work to come, she quietly became angry. Too busy with work to come? That can't be true. I was confused by her words, but she explained. "I'm an executive at Jack's company. When he first joined, I heard about this amazing new guy, and when I talked to him, I realized he was your husband. But recently, he seems to have started slacking off at work. There was a complaint from a client just yesterday," she said. I was surprised by her story, but maybe the reason Jack yelled at me on the phone yesterday was that he was in a bad mood from that complaint. I wanted to hear more, but the woman, considerate of my situation, didn't linger and left. That night, I went back home once to pack what I needed. Jack hadn't returned yet and wasn't answering his phone. I left a note saying I'd be at my parents' home for a while and left the house. The next day, the executive woman contacted me. Apparently, Jack had applied for bereavement leave and was off work that day too. But when I told her he hadn't shown up at the funeral, she murmured, "I thought so," and told me everything. Finally, she said, "I think he'll be terminated immediately. The next time he comes to the office, his desk won't be there." Jack contacted me the following night. "When are you coming back?" Although he said it in a displeased tone, I felt nothing. I had no feelings left for this man. "I'll come to pick up my things soon," I replied. "Huh? I won't be coming back. What's that supposed to mean?" Jack scoffed at me. "Let's get a divorce." When I said that firmly, Jack scoffed. "Divorce? Why would you suddenly bring that up? Not showing up at your wife's mother's funeral is insane. I can't live with you anymore." "Ah, right. Do as you please. It's you, Karen, who won't be able to live without me. You will be home tomorrow since it's Saturday, right? I'm coming to get my things, and I'll bring the divorce papers. Make sure you're there." I had everything prepared and was ready. The next day, I headed to the house with the divorce papers in hand. Upon opening the door, I found Jack sleeping on the sofa. Empty beer cans were scattered on the table. Then, I sensed something was off. As I glanced towards the bathroom, a woman emerged from it. "Huh?" As I involuntarily muttered, she noticed me and made a sound. This awoke Jack abruptly. What are you doing here?" Jack was flustered, his mouth agape as he looked at me. "Didn't I say I was coming today to get my things? And that I'd bring the divorce papers?" The woman who came out of the bathroom stood frozen for a moment, but, sensing the situation, sneaked out of the door without me noticing. Well, I knew who she was. Her presence didn't matter to me now. Jack then stammered, trying to make excuses like, "That's not what it looks like, she's a junior from work, we just went out for drinks yesterday." But I wasn't listening. What matters now is not that. Here are the documents for the division of assets. And these are the divorce papers. I don't want to waste time. So please check and sign them quickly. As he looked over the property division documents, Jack seemed almost triumphant. Property division, huh? Well, can't be helped. You'll need money to live on your own from now on. Fine, I'll give you this much. Then he signed the divorce papers and handed them to me. We're strangers now. Annoyed by his demeanor, I snatched the divorce papers and stormed out of the door. Later, I submitted the divorce papers to the court, and we were officially strangers. Yet, a few days later, Jack showed up at my parents' home. Karen. What's the meaning of this? Ah, it arrived then. Jack was holding a demand for alimony. It was something I had my lawyer, David, file for. Alimony? What's this about? It's written there, isn't it? Compensation for emotional abuse and infidelity. Jack had increasingly pushed household chores onto me, shouted at me, and such behavior had become more frequent. Unable to objectively assess the situation, I had started recording our daily interactions on my phone's voice recorder to understand things calmly. I never thought it would be useful, but when David heard it, he said it was emotional abuse and advised me to claim compensation. And then there was the compensation for infidelity. Jack, you've been coming home late recently, and something seemed off. Turns out, you were cheating. I wanted to believe it wasn't like you. I said calmly, and Jack retorted. No, that's not it, I wasn't cheating. That person the other day? We all went out for drinks, and she just missed her last train. So I brought her home. Nothing happened, it's a misunderstanding. Jack adamantly denied it. Why do you think I overlooked that woman fleeing that day? Because I had other evidence. I knew she was a junior from your company. Taking bereavement leave to go on a cheating trip is not okay. Did you think you wouldn't get caught? Besides, you've been fired from your company. Haven't you? I know everything. Jack looked at me, eyes wide. I continued, laughing. You, who boasted about being a rising star, wouldn't admit to being fired, would you? Fired, along with your affair partner, no less. Just because she's in accounting, you thought you could embezzle company funds without getting caught? How did you? He hadn't expected me to find out. Jack turned pale, his mouth opening and closing in shock. The woman who came to my mother's funeral was an executive from your company. She said she was a classmate of my mother's. She was quite upset that you didn't attend the funeral and thought about giving you a piece of her mind when she returned to the office. Then she realized you were on bereavement leave. She contacted me. The overnight trip to the spa must have been enjoyable, huh? With that, I presented the evidence photos I had kept. What, this? Jack's face grew paler by the second. Detectives are amazing, aren't they? I never imagined they could gather so much evidence. After hearing from the executive woman, my intuition kicked in. Seeing the note I left about my absence, Jack would surely go out somewhere. If my hunch was correct, it would be for an affair. When I consulted with the executive woman, she referred me to a lawyer and a detective. I had heard that hiring a detective could be expensive, but I was certain something would happen in the next few days. It made sense to hire one just for the day, and if I could claim alimony, the detective's fees would be offset. The day of the funeral, upon finding out I wouldn't be returning home, Jack left the next day for a trip with his affair partner. Must have been a fun affair trip, not knowing a detective was tailing you or that you'd been fired during your holiday. It's rare to be fired while on leave. Must have been a shock to come to work and find no place for you, I said. Finally, Jack spoke up. So, this was all you're doing? Hearing that made me laugh again. What are you accusing me of? The misuse of leave and embezzlement were all you're doing, weren't they? I concluded firmly. Just because you're unemployed now doesn't mean you can skip out on the alimony. There's also the division of assets. You can sell your pointless collection of watches to pay it off. Make sure you pay up quickly. With that, I slammed the front door shut. When the executive woman contacted me, her saying I thought so was due to suspicious activities in the company's finances. And it appeared that the affair partner, who worked in accounting, was suspected. Furthermore, rumors of her affair with Jack had reached her ears, so she thoroughly investigated and discovered they were indeed embezzling funds. They must have been enjoying their affair with that money. Both were terminated immediately. Later, Jack paid the alimony in a lump sum. I have no contact with him now, nor do I care what he's doing. Despite how things turned out, I'm grateful for this outcome. Without this incident, I might never have considered leaving Jack, who had changed so much, and would have continued to suffer. Maybe this was the last lesson my mother taught me. I'm okay, now. Now, I'm living healthily, making sure to be dutiful to my father. I'm Linda, 54 years old. I'd like to say I'm just an ordinary person, but according to my sister-in-law, it seems I'm blessed and unaware of the struggles of ordinary people. But more on that later. My husband, James, is also 54, the same age as me. We both work full-time on weekdays. We don't have children. So, the reason my sister-in-law, Michelle, often mentions that I'm blessed and unaware of the struggles of ordinary people is due to the excellent location of my house. It's close to both Nob Hill and Hayes Valley in San Francisco. And of course, it's within walking distance to Powell's Station. My grandfather built a house on his land, which my parents took over, and after they passed away, James and I moved from our apartment to live there. Michelle, who often remarks that I'm blessed and unaware, is 8 years my junior at 46 years old. Michelle often visits our home. Leaving her husband and 12-year-old child behind, she comes from her home 2 hours away about once every 3 months for a weekend visit. She says she likes Nob Hill. Michelle is 8 years younger than her brother, my husband James. She was born when James was in elementary school, and he always said she was small and cute. Since Michelle was born later in their lives, my in-laws apparently doted on her and raised her with great affection. But I just couldn't bring myself to like Michelle. Must be nice, growing up here without any struggles, she would say bitterly. It's because I was born in the countryside with nowhere to play. You, the lady, grew up warm and cozy without knowing such struggles, is her constant refrain. It's clear she's not friendly towards me. Yet she likes Nob Hill and Hayes Valley enough to visit this house. And she never brings any gifts. She claims the reason she doesn't bring a gift is, you just ridicule it as something from the countryside. Coming empty-handed, she says, must be nice, being so close to Nob Hill and Hayes Valley. You can live without a car, while we country folks can't live without one, and we have to spend money on transportation. But your area is nice too, isn't it? I like it. The air is clean, and the people around are kind, I say. Then she retorts, what's that, sarcasm? It's convenient with lots of shops around, you mean? I don't even go out much. I work during the day, I've said before. But she snaps back really sarcastic. Unlike you, I have tourist spots nearby as a matter of course. Makes me want to say who's being sarcastic here. I've even complained to James about her sharp words. But he would just say, my sister is straightforward. She's just being frank, that's all, and wouldn't take it seriously. Then, I heard Michelle was building a house. Again, it came up during one of her visits. Where? I asked. Near our place, obviously. We bought the land, unlike you who had it from the start. We can't afford such a nice plot. Must be nice being rich, she said. Irritated after being criticized so much, I asked, then how should I speak so you won't take it as sarcasm? Better to keep quiet, right? Everything you say comes out as sarcasm, she replied. I was left with no choice but to remain silent, effectively shut out of the conversation. Since then, she still visits but doesn't speak a word to me. Yet she keeps coming. More often than before. Because James allows it. Hey, a little help here. Your sister comes over, ignores me, uses our bath, eats our food, and still ignores me? I tried talking to him. He responded, that's just how she is, straightforward. You don't have to talk either. She leaves her husband and child so neither of you has to feel obliged. But still. Today, she went off to Hayes Valley on her own, came back, used the bath at her leisure, and went to sleep. The next day, she quietly eats the breakfast I've prepared and then stands up. Not even a single word of thanks. Is our home a hotel? Am I the hostess, housekeeper, and the head chef all rolled into one? If so, I'd like to issue an annual pass and have her purchase it. 3 months later, Michelle came to visit again. It seemed she was planning to stroll around Nob Hill today. But afterwards, she spent the evening in deep conversation with my husband. Michelle stayed the night and left the next day, but James was excited and showed me a bunch of photos. Hey, check this out. It's the house my sister built. Oh, so she finished her house. You'll like this too, I bet. What he showed me was a stark white building. It definitely looked new and clean. How cool is this? James was practically snorting in excitement as he showed it to me. I tilted my head in confusion. At first glance, it looked like a garage. It appeared so, but when I saw a mop in the photo, it was clear it wasn't big enough for a car. Wait, is this? Yeah, isn't it amazing? James puffed up with pride and exclaimed. It's a motorcycle garage. Custom made too. It's perfect for my Harley. What? I was dumbfounded. No, I mean, that's what I've been saying. It fits my Harley. But when you say saying, I don't get it. This is Michelle's house, right? No, we've been talking about it for a while. About swapping houses. What? Taken aback by the unexpected response and turn of events, I was startled. I ended up dropping the teacup I was holding. Michelle has always liked the location of this house. I've been saying it's old since it's from your parents' generation and I didn't like it. Then she said, why don't we swap houses then? I'll build a new one here, and you can have it. So? She built a custom motorcycle garage for my Harley. Wait, what? Without consulting me? I don't want to move out of this house. It's not that I have anything against her house. Rather, I can't even follow that line of thought. James started getting irritated, perhaps because he hadn't expected me to object. To me, his surprised face was the unexpected thing. What? Why are you hesitating? Michelle and I have been discussing this for a long time. Maybe, but I wasn't part of that conversation. I've been completely ignored. But think about it, it's all benefits. You get a motorcycle garage. Wait, what about my situation? Your hobby is watching suspense dramas, right? There's a TV in that house too. Indeed, James loves motorcycles. He cherishes his Harley-Davidson almost as much as his life. In comparison, I don't have significant hobbies, maybe just a fondness for watching suspense dramas on TV. But what about my commute? It'll just add a bit of time on the bus and train. Just a bit? It's going to add 2 hours. I can ride my Harley there. You should spend about 2 hours on your commute. You've been gaining weight lately, consider it a forced diet. A forced diet seems a bit much. Imagine the daily agony. But James's mind was filled with thoughts of the new house and the special garage for his Harley. It seemed my reluctance to let go of this old house was both unexpected and irritating for him, to the point where he was genuinely angry. Finally, James resorted to drastic measures. I'm giving our house to Michelle and her husband, Adam. It's a new build with a bike garage, I don't see any reason to refuse. If you do, we're getting a divorce, he suddenly declared. What? Divorce? Did he just say divorce? Was he really pushing it that far? I thought to myself. All right, just give me one night to think about it. That was all I could muster to say. I crawled into bed and I think I spent about 2 hours in shock. A house with a bike garage seemed like it was built solely for James. Michelle doesn't even have a motorcycle. Which means, she must have built the house with the takeover in mind from the start. But then again, James agreeing to it without my consent is on him too. And then, to unilaterally decide on the deal and threaten with divorce if I refused. This is clearly a form of coercion. I won't forgive this. So, I spent the next 8 hours until the following morning wrestling with my phone. The next day, I told James the first agreed to move. Give me 2 weeks to pack. I have work on weekdays, I added a condition. And one more thing. Michelle and Adam can't move in until we've vacated, right? I asked. Well, yes, James agreed. You had a garage built, right? Then at least, I want to hand it over in a clean state as a thank you. So could we pass it over after another 2 weeks? I'll have it cleaned by professionals. James agreed. In James's absence, I made calls to 2 places. 2 weeks flew by in no time. James, singing some odd Harley song, joyfully packed our things. While on the phone with Michelle, he even asked questions like, "How many square feet is that room over there?" as he planned out where to place the furniture. It seemed they were also calling about the floor plan. For them, moving from their current apartment within the 4 weeks they were given was quite a rush. They seemed to be hurriedly preparing to move. Then came moving day. "Hello. We're from Horsemark Movers," announced the moving company when they arrived. "Right this way, please." James welcomed the movers. But then, immediately after, "Hello. We're from Shangri-La Transport," another moving company arrived. "What?" James was confused. I slipped past James and welcomed the second company. "Right this way, please." "What's going on?" James demanded. "What do you mean? I told you, didn't I? I said you can move out. So, let's both move to our new homes. Bye. The boxes with the yellow tape are mine, please take those this way. The rest goes with the Horsemark Movers," I briskly directed. And an hour later. "Well, that's that. Thanks for everything. I'll send the divorce papers later." "Wait a minute." James shouted in panic, but I glanced back at him briefly. "Weren't you the one who wanted a divorce?" Leaving James behind, I quickly left the scene in the taxi I had called. The taxi ride was so short, it barely cost anything. That must have been tough. The person who was waiting for my taxi came towards me. It was my brother, Michael. Michael came to help with the move. "Well, it's good you found a place in 2 weeks. It's a rental, though. Well, once things settle down, we can look for an apartment or something again." What a disaster that was. It was more than just a disaster. At least I put yellow tape on the essentials like kitchen appliances, so we'll manage somehow here. Michael helped with the move. Despite the movers handling the large items, having a man's help for the finer details was necessary. It was a big help. With Michael's assistance, we managed to finish moving by the end of the day. "Call me again in 2 weeks, Michael said as he left. And then came the 2 weeks Michael mentioned. In other words, it was 2 weeks after the day I moved. My phone rang. See, I knew it. "Hello?" When I answered, it was Michelle on the line. "What's the meaning of this?" I just listened in silence. "There's no house." I had to stifle my laughter and look down. It was hard not to make a sound. "It's just an empty lot." "Why aren't you saying anything?" "Because I was told, better to keep quiet, right?" "Damn." Michelle shrieked. I finally burst into laughter. It seems Michelle and James were together. The phone was passed to James. "How could you go this far?" he yelled, sounding almost in tears. "I don't want to hear that from someone who threatened me," I retorted. My stomach really hurt from laughing. I did say, I want to hand it over in a clean state, didn't I? The definition of clean is different here. It's the ultimate clean. Completely pristine. James clicked his tongue in frustration. "Anyway, you come and talk. I have nothing to talk to you about. If you refuse, I won't sign the divorce papers. You were the one who said if I refused to leave that house, we'd get a divorce. What's with changing your tune now?" "Shut up. Then, I'll come over to your place for now. But I'm too scared to go alone, so I'll bring someone with me." That's when I contacted Michael. "My turn, huh? I'm on my way." Such a reliable brother. Thank you all for gathering here today. Adam, whom I hadn't seen since the wedding, started as if a wedding ceremony was about to begin. Michelle's timid-looking husband. Me, Michael, James, Michelle and Adam were seated around the table in James's new home, forming a circle. Admittedly, the kids were in the next room. But the scene in that room was quite something. Michelle had come over triumphantly, only to be dumbfounded by the sight of the now vacant lot. However, she had already terminated her apartment lease and couldn't go back. On short notice, the movers were instructed to bring the belongings into Michelle's new build, which James was now supposed to move into. This resulted in an incredibly cramped space, with 2 of everything, like dining tables and cupboards. The sight of having two of everything was chilling in its own way. It's almost like something you'd see in a broadcasting accident on TV. First of all, why would you demolish it? Isn't this just too much of a spiteful act towards me?
Yeah.
Just because my sister is straightforward and you're sulky, you're taking it out on us? There's a limit to being spiteful. James and Michelle were yapping away. I laughed. I inherited that land and house, originally belonging to my grandfather. I'm free to do what I want with it, right? What? James was taken aback. Michael chimed in with a follow-up. Meaning that land and house were inherited by Linda. It's her personal property, not part of the marital assets. In other words, her husband never had the right to decide to give it to Michelle. What? What? Michelle and James were taken aback by this unexpected turn of events. Well, you could have just said that.
Yeah.
You could have just mentioned that. Typical siblings, echoing each other. And now it's my fault? You were the one who said it would be divorce if I didn't comply, and as for your sister, I was told to shut up, so I couldn't say anything. Being threatened with divorce by your husband and ignored by Michelle, you couldn't say anything, right? It was a synchronized sibling response from us too. So, I decided to demolish that house too, as it's too big for me to live alone after the divorce, and sell the now vacant lot. Indeed, the day after I was threatened with divorce, I called Michael. And the other call was to a demolition company. I was told it would take 10 days to demolish the house. Michelle, for all her troubles, takes 2 hours to get here, making it a 4-hour round trip. If the moving grace period is short, she'd definitely be too busy packing to come over. The same was true for James, who moved to Michelle's new build near her former apartment. Thus, when they finally moved, they were met with the grand counterattack of a vacant lot. Enough already. We've lost our home to live in, you know? And because the house was gone, we had to temporarily move into my brother's place. Costing us the moving fee twice. I don't know anything about that. You could have been sued for trespassing on my property, right? Since it was vacant. At least you didn't become criminals, so isn't that good? I sneered. Then I said to James, is a woman who fusses over such small amounts of money really straightforward? That's laughable. Michael added, ignoring someone isn't being straightforward, it's being sulky. So, does this mean this move was planned without your consent? Adam, who had been silent till then, piped up. Right? I mean, Michelle said to keep quiet, and James was threatening, so they just got carried away on their own, I revealed. Suddenly, Adam, who seemed timid until now, began to tremble with emotion. Hey, you, what do you mean by this? Spending lavishly every 3 months in Nob Hill and Hayes Valley. Especially the spending in Nob Hill was outrageous. Leaving me and the child behind. And now, you say we're going to live there so we don't need the car and sold it. A car is essential for living here. But this house has a bike garage but no parking. Isn't this too much for making unilateral decisions? What's gotten into you? Michelle must have never seen him so angry before. She was clearly shaken. Linda. Adam continued. She told me, we're taking my brother's house and moving. If you refuse, it's a divorce. What? It was surprising how similar the siblings' reactions were. I was seriously worried my abs would give out from all the laughing. This will make my muscles sore tomorrow. But I'm a remote software engineer, so I can live anywhere, and I thought it'd be sad for the kids not to have their mom around. So I went along with it. But at this point, their selfishness is too extreme, and it's negatively affecting the kids. What made me realize that was what you said? Adam took a deep breath before addressing Michelle. What you said was threatening, it's over for us. I'll take care of and raise the child. I'll consider that a threat as a proposal and go along with it, he said. Well then, let me add my part. I followed up with James. I'll accept that as a proposal too. We're truly done now. Goodbye. Wait, just wait a minute. If the house is gone, that means the situation has changed, right? Exactly. The situation has changed, so it's unfair to unilaterally cut things off. The siblings started clamoring together. Adam and I waved our hands in unison. Creating a ridiculous situation, getting carried away, and then just returning to the original state, Adam said bluntly. In the end, what happened was that Adam and I each hired a lawyer and went through mediation for divorce. It seems the new house built by Michelle ended up with Adam, along with custody of the child. Michelle, who had been known for her extravagant outings and spending sprees. The child, often left alone on weekends, seemed to have been lonely already. Becoming a single parent, the father made an effort to be there for the child, who now says they're happy. The reason the new house ended up with Adam was that Michelle didn't have enough income to make the loan payments. The fact that she could go on spending sprees in the city every 3 months despite not having income is astounding. Her spending habits didn't change, and I heard she ended up in debt. The bike garage was demolished, and the layout was slightly altered to create a parking space. James, having been a dual-income household until now, realized he couldn't afford to invest in his Harley after being kicked out of my house. He had to give up the Harley due to a significant division of assets. Losing his Harley and hobby, he vented his frustration on his lawyer. Turning reckless in life, he resorted to drowning his sorrows in alcohol, which was quite a sight. I turned the land where the house had been into a parking lot. Since it's close to Nob Hill and Hayes Valley, I could charge a premium for parking fees, providing me with a steady income. With that as my capital, I eventually bought an apartment. It's a small one-bedroom, perfect for one person, but it's cozy. I settled in front of the big screen TV with a grin. Today was the day my favorite suspense drama aired. Enjoying it with a beer in hand, uninterrupted by anyone. It was perfect. Having taken a bath, I'm ready with the ultimate 5-piece set, barefaced, pajamas, beer, big screen, and suspense drama. With snacks ready, I sank into the sofa and hit the remote's power button.